America and Israel launched their biggest military strike on Iran, Operation Epic Fury, and Trump boasted the war would be over in weeks. But the reality is that 3 months have passed, and Iran is still standing tall, with the Strait of Hormuz still closed. And if you knew that this Hormuz closure triggered the largest oil market shock in history, with Brent crude piercing $100 per barrel and cutting global oil supply by 6.9 million barrels per day, because Trump, who spent his entire campaign screaming, "We don't need China," has now flown thousands of kilometers to Beijing, asking Xi Jinping to help resolve a conflict America itself started. And what's even more surprising, behind the Trump-Xi meeting, there are allegedly secret negotiations about Taiwan that appear in no public record. So is Trump's visit to Beijing the hidden moment of global power transfer, a sign that the era of America as the world's sole leader has truly and finally ended? Everything will be covered in this video, so stay with us until the end. 28 February 2026, 3 a.m. Middle East time. Hundreds of missiles and bombs fell on Iran simultaneously. B-2 stealth bombers, F-22s, F-16s, and A-10 attack aircraft struck more than 1,000 target locations within the first 24 hours. Iran's supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, was killed in the opening hours of the operation. America and Israel had just launched Operation Epic Fury, and Trump, with complete confidence, told the world this will be over in a matter of weeks. But ask yourselves, how long have you been hearing news about this war with Iran? 3 months, and Iran is still standing. The Strait of Hormuz is still closed. Oil prices are still above $100 per barrel. Something is very wrong here. America has the world's most advanced military technology. Israel has the region's finest intelligence. The combination of these two powers should have been overwhelming for Iran. But the opposite happened. Iran launched Operation True Promise 4, a retaliatory strike against 7 countries simultaneously within 48 hours. Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Iraq all hit. More than 100 targets across 11 American military bases struck. CNN reported that at least 16 American military bases in the Middle East suffered significant damage. And the most embarrassing moment, in one of the most shocking episodes in modern military history, an Iranian fighter jet from the 1960s, the Northrop F-5 Tiger II, successfully penetrated American and Israeli air defenses over Kuwait to bomb Camp Buring. A 60-year-old aircraft pierced a defense system worth trillions of dollars. But here's the question you need to think about. If Trump said this war would end quickly, why are there still no signs of resolution after 3 months? And the most suspicious detail, American defense company stocks rose 31% on the exact day the first strikes were launched, the very first day. Who knew in advance? Who had already positioned themselves for massive gains from this war long before it began? Some independent analysts argue this war was never designed to be won quickly. The real objective, keeping the Middle East in permanent instability to keep oil prices elevated and America's weapons industry continuously running. Does that make sense to you now?
Let me make this even clearer. They closed the Strait of Hormuz. Picture this. The Strait of Hormuz is only about 50 kilometers wide at its narrowest point, a tiny strip of water between Iran and Oman. Yet through that strait flows approximately 20% of the world's oil every single day, around 20 million barrels. This isn't just any shipping lane. This is the energy artery of modern human civilization, and Iran closed it. The consequences: the World Bank described it as the largest oil market shock in history. Global oil supply fell by 6.9 million barrels per day, the largest drop since the COVID-19 pandemic. Brent crude surged 65% in a single month, the highest monthly rise ever recorded, breaking through $100 per barrel and continuing to climb. All of Asia, including our region in Southeast Asia, took the hardest hit. Why? Because almost all oil entering Asia passes through Hormuz. China, India, South Korea, Japan, all of them depend on that one narrow strait. One nation with 2,440 kilometers of coastline and drone and missile capabilities scattered across the region, Iran, holds the key to shutting down the entire Asian economy whenever it chooses, and they have now proven that key can be used.
14th-15th May 2026. Trump flew to Beijing, not as the President of America at the peak of his power, but as a leader cornered, out of options, forced to travel to his longtime adversary to ask for help. This was the first state visit from an American president to China since 2017, nearly a decade, and the context was unmistakable. America could not solve its own problems, and China was the only nation with sufficient influence over Iran to pressure them. Trump brought a large delegation: Secretary of State Rubio, Secretary of Defense Hegseth, Elon Musk, Apple CEO Tim Cook, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang. This was no ordinary visit. This was a parade of American corporate power appearing before Xi Jinping. And the outcome? Xi stated China would not send weapons to Iran. Trump called that a big statement. They agreed to build what was described as a constructive China-US relationship of strategic stability. But think carefully about this. Trump, who repeatedly shouted throughout his campaign, "We don't need China," has now flown thousands of kilometers to Beijing to ask for help. The leader who said America could go it alone is now sitting at Xi Jinping's dining table asking for assistance, opening a strait America itself cannot open. One analyst from the International Crisis Group stated openly, the operation that was supposed to intimidate Beijing has instead proven the limits of American power. And the most provocative theory being discussed? Trump's visit to Beijing was not merely a standard diplomatic meeting. It was a hidden moment of global power transfer. The New World Order did not begin with a nuclear war, did not begin with a stock market collapse, but with two leaders sitting in Beijing, and one of them was the one who came asking for help. The greatest irony? Secretary Rubio had previously told the public, "We are not asking China for help. We don't need their assistance." Yet Trump's Beijing trip happened anyway. They said they didn't need help, but their president was the one who flew there. Make of that what you will.
Now the most important question. What did China ask for in return? Because one thing is certain in geopolitics, nothing is free, especially from China. Analysts agree, China would not help America resolve the Hormuz crisis without receiving something significant in return. And notably, Xi Jinping at that meeting immediately raised Taiwan as the most important issue in US-China relations, warning Trump about the possibility of clashes and even conflicts if Taiwan is not handled carefully. That was no coincidence. It was a very clear negotiating signal. In Southeast Asia, the impact is already being felt directly because we sit right in the middle of all of this. Energy prices surging from the Hormuz closure have struck the entire region. Production costs have risen, Food prices have risen because fertilizer also passes through Hormuz. Prices of imported goods have risen. And the most vulnerable nations are those most dependent on imported energy with no domestic reserves. But on the other side sits a very interesting opportunity. Nations with strong ties to China are gaining easier access to energy because China is the only party whose ships can still pass through Hormuz. This is no accident. This is highly structured geopolitical leverage. And the most alarming theory, if China successfully extracts Taiwan concessions from America as the condition for reopening the Hormuz, then Iran has indirectly helped China gain Taiwan without firing a single bullet at the island. A chess move that, if it plays out as described, would be one of the most brilliant geopolitical maneuvers in modern history. If China gets Taiwan concessions in exchange for reopening the Hormuz, does that mean America has begun surrendering Taiwan for the sake of its own energy interests? And one small detail that almost nobody noticed. Rubio, who previously said we don't need China's help, was actually the first person to shake hands with Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi at the Beijing meeting. What leaders say in public and what they do behind closed doors are two entirely different things. That is geopolitics. That is the game unfolding before all of us. Because in the end, everything comes back to self-interest. There are no permanent enemies.
So what does all of this mean for us in Southeast Asia? Fuel prices across our region have already risen significantly, and there are no signs of them falling anytime soon. According to World Bank projections, if Hormuz remains closed for more than 6 months, Southeast Asian economies risk sliding into recession territory. Developing nations without their own energy reserves are the most vulnerable, and unfortunately, most countries in Southeast Asia fall into that category. But here lies the most fascinating paradox. On one side, America, which has long served as the security anchor of this region, is now showing its limits. They cannot resolve a conflict they themselves started. They cannot open a blocked strait, and they had to travel to China to ask for help. On the other side, China, through control of energy access and Belt and Road investment, is increasingly presenting itself as an alternative power that cannot be ignored. And here is what I believe may be the most alarming grand design of all. This entire scenario, from Operation Epic Fury to the Hormuz closure to Trump's Beijing visit, could be part of a carefully calculated plan to force all of Southeast Asia to choose sides in a new Cold War. America needs Southeast Asia to remain in the dollar's orbit. They apply pressure through sanctions and military presence. China needs Southeast Asia to enter the yuan's orbit. They offer cheap energy and investment, and Hormuz is the control button. Whoever can open Hormuz wins the heart of Southeast Asia. The final question you need to consider: if America cannot open Hormuz alone and had to ask China for help, is this the sign that the era of America as the world's sole leader has truly and finally ended? And where should smaller nations stand? Note, much of what has been discussed here represents speculative analysis and conspiracy theory. Feel free to believe it or not. You are free to form your own conclusions. Write your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and see you in the next video. See ya!